Okay, slightly early, but because I know he's a busy man, I thought and he's here and he's waiting for us. I thought we'll bump the news back and we'll have our first interview of the morning with the Foreign Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand, the Right Honourable Winston Raymond Peters. Mr. Peters, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks for having me on.
All right. Look, first I just want to get some current issues out of the way. We did an interview a while back about the Sport Foundation's policy and its non-binding, apparently, policy on the inclusion and the protocols around transgender competitors in what is called community sport in New Zealand. And groups had raised concern, Mr. Peters, that the need for diversity and inclusion under that policy as it's currently written would appear to put diversity and inclusion above the safety of women and fairness in sport. You expressed some strong views. We tried to get the National Party and the Sports Minister to comment on it, and then you and everyone else went quiet. But suddenly yesterday, we get or the day before yesterday, we get a statement from Chris Bishop that basically gives effect to what you said was going to happen. You said they need to rewrite the policy. You said they need to look at it. Was that policy announcement day before yesterday, was it the result of your representations to the Minister, Chris Bishop?
It was, and it's also a result of our commitment gained from the National Party in our coalition agreement, because it's not about being anti-anyone or anti-so-called diversity. It's about safety and fairness for women. And you look at it that way, it's just plain common sense to do what we're doing, particularly if you've got taxpayers' money involved and you're subscribing to something that's blatantly unfair and unsafe for women. Yeah. So we want to change.
All right. Can I first say congratulations? And I know that many people listening to the platform are very pleased that Chris Bishop has got off the fence on this issue. Was it difficult to convince him to take action on it?
Well, we, as I say, negotiated it in the coalition agreement, and we wanted to see the sports bodies and Sport New Zealand recognising for a start that there had been a change of government, that there also is a responsible policy when it comes to taxpayers' money, and it's based on plain common sense and fairness. And we've got progress here, and it's just the beginning, but we'll see it play out over the next few months.
All right. Well, the Minister has said in his statement, he's given himself a ton of wiggle room. He said, we'll, have more on this in the coming months. Well, months can run into years, Mr. Peters. Do you have a commitment from him as to the timing of the rewrite of this policy?
Well, I believe so. I am hearing sort of cynics and doubters on this matter, but give the Minister a chance to put in place what he's committed and his party and the government is committed to doing. And I will stand by and watch very carefully, but progress is what we want to be able to report on, and we're going to make sure it does happen. We are not going to be spending taxpayers' money in an unjustifiable way where it is leading to gross unfairness and worse still, endangers women's and girls' lives on the sporting field, so to speak. Two
areas of criticism have come that I want to run past you. Shannon Halbert, Labour MP, gay Labour MP, perhaps not surprisingly, says that you are promoting hate, or the government is promoting hate. And Audrey Young in the Herald, who has written that this is a meaningless rats and mice issue that the government shouldn't really be bothered about. Would you care to respond to those two critics?
Yes. What you've just heard is a view that is totally disconnected with reality and with the New Zealanders' decade-old, century-old sense of a thing called fairness. How do they explain this? How can they explain that someone is hitting the sporting field massively disadvantaged because the other person is physically, by their birth, much stronger? And if they can explain that to us, then maybe we'll listen, but they can't and never have made a case for it. So just making those sorts of spurious statements, I don't care where they come from, won't stand the test of examination as to whether this is fair, whether it leads to safety And whether at the end of the day it makes any common sense at all, in those cases, they, or in their criticism, massively fail.
What about Audrey Young's column in the Herald calling it a rats and mice initiative that doesn't really matter?
Well, that might be Audrey's view. And I would say to her, if you think that, then go out and talk to ordinary New Zealanders and perhaps for the first time for a long time, start listening to what they want. They're the ones who pay the money. They're the ones who pay the taxes. They're the ones who keep us all in our job. So maybe we'll have less talk and more listening so that New Zealanders can feel that they've got something, or representatives in Parliament and in government who are actually representatives and not just their domineering personalities. That's
all right.
What's what we're signaling here.
All right. One other issue I want to raise before, and I want to talk about the weekend and the anniversary, I suddenly realised, Monday, of last year's election. Also, the speech you've got coming in Hamilton. Reports this morning out of Laos that the Prime Minister has made some strong statements about Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli leadership. Words to the effect that he is not listening to the rest of the world in terms of how he is prosecuting the war or his response to the conflict in the Middle East. And I would say also your words have been chosen carefully in international forums on this conflict. Could I ask you, who do you think Benjamin Netanyahu should be listening to? The United Nations and the so-called international community, or the people who elected him and are under attack from outside their country by terrorists who want to wipe them and their families off the map?
Well, it's the very essence of democracy, and that's one of the rare governments in that part of the world that is a true democracy. It's one of the critical essentials of a democracy that you listen to the people that you represent. That's what it means. Democracy is representation of the people at their behest and at their agreement. So he passes that test in that respect. But of course, you've got others who would place new criteria on them or him. In any democracy, I would say again, who's your master? Well, it's the people who voted for you.